All right, guys, so I'm looking at the tracker that I put in the car today. So this is where we are, and he is all the way up in fucking Detroit right now, man. I became a Turo host exactly 1 month ago today, and between buying the car that's right behind me that's been able to help me to do Turo, and for booking this trip that was well over 2 weeks, I'm here to tell you exactly how much I made and profited in my very first month, and if I think it's a profitable business adventure. Let's get into it. My very first Turo trip was exactly 1 month ago with my 2018 Toyota Corolla. Right now I'm headed to the car wash, get this baby looking nice and clean for my my Turo guy. So after Turo took their cut from my first 3 days booking on Turo, I made $72 profit, which is exactly where I left off last, but we have so much more to cover that I haven't told you about yet. But before anything, I only had one car, which was the Toyota Corolla. I wanted to rent this car out, but I needed something for myself to daily drive, so I started looking. After looking at several different choices in the area, I eventually settled with this 2016 Hyundai Accent, which if we actually go and take a look at over here, does have, if you can see right there, quite a bit of body damage. And to be fully transparent, I only did a few hours of research before I decided to go and buy this car, because the way that I see it is I am 21 years old and I don't take enough risks in my life. When it comes to money, I don't necessarily take as many educated risks as I should, and this not being the biggest investment in the world, I thought was a great place to start. Because even if everything were to fail, and I don't think it will, I'm gonna learn a lot, and that's the most important part about making these adventures. So after looking at several different choices, and I almost actually bought this Ford on screen right here, but I didn't. I eventually settled with this car. Like I said, it has body damage and some cigarette holes in the back as well. But the listing price was only $9,100, and with having less than 90,000 miles on it, I honestly thought this wasn't a bad deal. I mean, look at her, she's pretty. Aww. And another thing that I do need to learn is apparently my negotiation skills, which I was able to talk him down a little bit, but honestly stepping away, I think I could have got a better deal. But I did talk him down to $8,800, which was about $500 lower than the Kelley Blue Book, so I'm not too upset about that. But I gotta be honest and say that this car is not all perfect. So I did give it quite a lengthy test drive and noticed nothing while I was actually in it. I left the car running for about 20 minutes, and while I'm not a car guy, I popped the hood to see if I see anything weird, hear anything, smell anything, and everything really checked out. I bought the car, took it home, and the next day when I started the car, I realized that there was an issue with the sensor. I'm not sure, the ABS light came on, the brake light came on, and the speedometer would completely go out, so I'd have no idea how fast I was going, and that was pretty devastating. I thought this would be a fairly easy fix as well, maybe just a fuse, so I did go ahead and take it in, and the mechanic told me that it wasn't an easy fix and that the entire part would need replaced. He even recommended that I didn't do it because he said it was going to be $1,400 to get the part from Hyundai. Yeah, I'm not spending $1,400 because my lights come on. He also changed the fuse on the cigarette lighter because it wasn't giving any power, so I paid for his time to look through the car, change the fuse, and so with that, the total price of the car, the taxes, the plates, it came all to about $10,000 even. Oddly enough, about the sensor issue, I've drove the car 1,500 miles since then and I've had no issues. Fingers crossed. So now that I invested $10,000 into the car, let me tell you my plan to recoup all that money and then start to break a profit. Firstly, I was desperately in need of some new pictures of my Corolla to put on Turo. The pictures I initially took were just from my phone, and honestly, they just weren't that good. I increased the price from $32 a day to $50 a day, but I kept the discounts for longer trips. I updated my profile, and then I waited. And as soon as I set it up, I got another booking for the very next day. I couldn't believe how fast my car got booked, and I was super excited to give her the keys. That is, until I got a text from my guest asking if she could pick up the car in a few hours, while she had actually booked for the next day. I was confused why she wanted to pick it up a day earlier than her trip started, because I have same-day booking available. But I wanted to be a good host and get a good rating, so after about a half an hour on the phone with Turo support, I was able to get her in that same day. That being said, she was 40 minutes late, and this was before I had bought my lockbox, so I had no way of doing a contactless drop-off, so I really did have to wait around for 40 minutes, but she did show up, and it went pretty smooth. For the next 2 days, I didn't hear anything until about 8 hours before her trip ended, when I got a text from my girlfriend who had just come home and said, "Hey, that's weird. Did she return the car early?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" Well, sure enough, I go outside and my car's sitting there 8 hours early with no text or no call. Well, I texted her and was like, is everything all right? You didn't knock on the door, you didn't give me a text, a call, anything, and my car's just sitting here 8 hours early. Well, another 6 hours go by, and eventually she texts me and just said, Sorry. So that was my first encounter that didn't really go to plan, but I mean, it really wasn't that big of a deal. It could have been a lot worse, so I just let it slide. And from this 3-day trip, I made $101. So after that, I went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and I had another booking, but this one was a little special. It was for 13 days. After Turo takes their fees and insurance, I was going to make over $400. A trip like this gave me a lot of reassurance to how well Turo is going to perform in my area, because that is just a crazy amount of money for just letting someone use my car for 2 weeks. After I gave her the car, everything went well, and I didn't hear anything for almost the entire 2 weeks until the very last day when she asked if she could extend it. So she extended it for another 3 days. It would have been longer actually, but I had another booking that someone had made, and I'm not going to cancel someone else's booking because she waited until last minute to tell me, and she understood. So after her extension and all of Turo's fees, I made $510 from this 2-week and 3-day trip. That's about a week's worth of work for me on an app like DoorDash, so I'm super happy with that. Considering the whole process and getting everything set up, and all that only took about an hour. All right, so I just got word that the car was dropped off after a 2.5-week trip, so I'm gonna go check the car out. This will be my first reaction. Let's see how it is. There she is. All right, it looks really good on the outside. She told us she actually gave it a car wash, which is just going above and beyond, honestly, because most people wouldn't really do that, honestly. So looks good. Yeah, I mean, that looks great. Nothing new in the trunk. That's actually crazy. I can't believe that. This looks amazing for a 2-week rental. All right, after turning the car on, let's check the mileage. It was 64,170, and now we're looking at, so she put 1,100 miles on, which for 2.5 weeks is really not a lot of miles at all. She had like 3,200 she could put on there. All right, lastly, it's been about 9,000 miles since I've changed my oil. Now it is fully synthetic. I don't think I need to change it yet, but that's something you always want to check before every trip. I'm no mechanic, but I can check a little bit of oil.
You sure?
We're about to find out. See, that bitch is still good.
Is that bitch still good?
Yep, no blowing up today. Again, I just can't believe she got me a car wash. That's super helpful, like honestly, because that's gonna cost me money every time I do that. So super good guest. Finish checkout. She took great care of the car and even took it to a car wash and cleaned it out before she returned it. She was honestly a dream customer. So now all roads lead to the very last trip that I just completed today. It was a 1-day trip, which I don't recommend because it's way more work to deal with 30 customers a month for 1 day than maybe 10 customers for 3 days each. So yeah, I only got paid $46 from this trip. That's even with unlimited mileage, which is what I want to talk about. They took a 1-day trip with unlimited mileage. I recently installed a GPS tracker inside of the car as well, so that way if the car gets stolen, it gets stuck, it gets totaled, at least I know where the car is. Well, this being my first trip checking it out, I thought, you know, I'll check out the GPS. I'll see where he is. He was in Detroit. He was in Detroit. All right, guys, so I'm looking at the tracker that I put in the car today. So this is where we are. We're basically in between Dayton and Cincinnati. So he picked the car up here, and he is all the way up in fucking Detroit right now, man. Yeah, this is gonna be a huge L because he's 259 miles away, and he did buy the unlimited mileage. I'm basically gonna get paid $46 for a minimum of 500 miles. Okay, so the tracker is now gray, so we think he actually lives in Detroit.
Toledo would have been so much closer for him.
That doesn't make any sense, bro. I don't even want to try and guess why he needed a car rental in Dayton, Ohio to take it all the way up to Detroit and then come back. That's, I'm not even going to try to guess. Maybe there's a bakery inside of Detroit that he just really likes and, you know, wanted to take a cruise in a Corolla to go and get it. When you rent your car out to somebody, when they have the car, it is not your car. So there's no sense in sitting there and freaking out, what are they doing? Because if they damage it, they get charged for it. If they don't, they take it to Detroit and it's in the rules, then it doesn't really matter. And when he brought it back, there was no damage, but he drove almost 600 miles, which again was completely in his authority to do so because I set it up in a way where something like that would happen. So since then, I've changed it where there's no 1-day trips. I've also increased the price of the unlimited mileage from $10 a day to $25 a day. Because yeah, for 46 bucks driving 500 miles, that's not very good, honestly. So on Turo, if you can see that, my very first month, I made $730. The car that I'm renting is a Toyota Corolla, which is very efficient. So I estimate with things like maintenance, wear and tear, the car washes, the subscription service for the GPS, which is only $8 a month, that it's going to cost me about $80 a month at this rate to rent out the car. And to add another car to my insurance plan so I can use this one to rent out, it cost me an additional $120 a month. So subtract that, in my first month I profited $530. And your last question might be, well, what if your car gets totaled or someone wrecks it and they, you know, cause a lot of damage? Well, that's why I pay the 25% of my earnings thanks to Turo because they insure, and I also recommend double protecting yourself by getting an insurance plan for your car to meet the state requirements that also works with Turo. Now, if someone were to, let's say, worst case scenario, total my car, I actually wouldn't be too upset about that because of the amazing deal I got on my car in the first place. When I bought my 2018 Toyota Corolla, it had about 30,000 miles on it, and I bought it for $11,500. Now, even though I've put another 35,000 miles on that car in the last year, I would say it's still worth 15 grand. That being said, if someone totals the car, I would probably get about 15 grand from my insurance company, which means if they wreck the car, I would profit about $3,500. But anyways, if this video was helpful to you at all, make sure to drop a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.